Up From Work podcast. My name's Dave Swillum. Let's get ready to hustle.
So welcome back to the Waking Up From Work podcast. You're listening to episode 74 tonight. I hope that you folks enjoyed 73 with the Hunter's van life. If you didn't check that one out, it was really cool. It's the first time I've had anyone living like a alternative. You guys who can't see it on the podcast, I just air quoted that because I think it's an awesome way to live. Alternative way of living on here, talking about van life. So the Hunters, Ethan and Caitlin, are great friends of mine. We talked inside their van is where we actually shot and recorded the episode. I'll have some of that content out for you later, but go check that one out. You can hear about what van life is if you don't know it, or a little bit about some people that are up to it. And that was a cool one. Tonight is going to be another one of those really potent points where we don't spend too much time as an episode, but we're really hitting a topic very hard because I don't have a guest. This is a space for me when I do these episodes to hit a singular topic and really dig into it in a way that I don't usually get to do, because when I have a guest, you know, they have such cool shit to say that I always want to ask them a ton of questions and really spin it out because I only get a certain amount of time with them. Whereas when I'm by myself, it's kind of weird, but I'm getting more used to it, where I'm straight up just in my room by myself, chilling, talking to a microphone. And that seems really crazy. If you've never done it before, try it. Try sitting in front of a mic for 30 minutes. Just speaking to yourself. It's weird, guys. It's totally weird, but I'm getting used to it, and it's not as weird to me anymore. And I'm a super ranty person anyway, so I'm like kind of okay at filling that time. Tonight will be one of those episodes, and the reason why it is good is because then I can just sit and hang out on one thing. So I've said it in a couple of the recent episodes, and this is usually how these episodes kind of come out of me, is I want to talk tonight about making something a problem first. I know that that is kind of vague and it's kind of almost contradictory. Like that sounds like a bad thing, right? Like making a problem. Like, why would I make a problem? It doesn't make any sense. Like that is a bad thing. A problem is a bad thing. Why would I do that? Making a problem first to me is taking action, and then just realizing that you can always solve a problem, and that we actively solve problems every day, all day long. So it's actually a good thing. And I want you to know that it's a good thing, because you're choosing what problem it is that you want to attack, and you're making it a problem. And then you're inevitably going to have to solve that problem. And that's going to create action for you if you're having a hard time. So this might not be an episode for people that are like pure action takers, like they just constantly go, and they don't stop, like they are having no problem, no restraint taking action. But I know me, and I usually consider myself an action taker. Like I feel like I do take the risks and I do make jumps and do stuff and then go, oh shit, and react to it. I think that still, you know, people who are generally action takers still get in spots where they get back into comfort a little bit, or they hold themselves back with these limiting beliefs. And that's really where I've been on this topic about lately. So this should be helpful, hopefully, for those of you out there that are like having a restraint or something that's holding you back, where you're like, damn, I just wish that I could do this thing. And then you say, but, you say the word but, then you say all these reasons why it can't happen. And recently it kind of spurred into this, where I had a conversation in a parking lot with an individual that is a really cool person that I just met. Haven't talked to her too much, but we just talked in a parking lot for like 40 minutes or something. It was crazy. Like we just went off on this, where it was like, I want to do all these things, but these reasons. And, you know, if you're listening to this and you know who you are, like we talked about this, and like, I think that you know that there's things that you can do, and you're just trying to figure out your right way of going about it and stuff. So definitely no harm to you if you're listening and you hear this episode and it's you. But that conversation, it was very much a look back of like how I've been in the past, where you say, let's just take me and break out the examples right away. I'm an audio engineer and a producer. I live in small towns and rural spots. I can get to cities. I can get to Boston. I can get to, soon, hopefully I'll be living around the Portland, Maine area. I can get to these places really quickly, but I still tell myself, you can't do this full time, or you can't do this and make good money, or you can't do this and get great artists because you don't live in Nashville or LA or New York City or something like Chicago or something. And that's a limiting belief. And if I stick to not acting and creating the problem of having to try to get enough clients, get enough income, or get the best people to work with, then I would just sit around and just believe that it wasn't possible, never try, never learn or react. So that's really what this is about. Is I had a long conversation of like, I can't do this thing because of where I live. I can't do this thing because no one pays money for it. I can't do this thing because the market doesn't want it. I can't do this thing because I'm too, in debt, because I don't have time. That's the worst one, and people say it all the time because it is just ridiculous. Like, no one has time. No one that you talk to ever has time. No one has time. But it's one of those things where you will innately fill that up. If you have time, you're going to fill it up with shit. That's just what we do. You don't have time. You know what I mean? So, but all these things that you say why something's not possible, and then what I see a ton in the creative community, and it totally sucks because there's amazing artists that I get to find and kind of push and get out there and do it, but they don't act at all because they don't create a problem to solve yet. Create a problem. Make it a problem. If you it's not a problem because you say it or think it, or because your mom thinks it, or because your friend thinks that it's not possible. None of that has actually brought a problem to fruition yet, because it's all just like guessing. There's no experimentation. Even if you research it, the research might be done by someone who's not you and doesn't have your talents, or they're not in a position where they were able to do it because of so many other circumstances. It's kind of crazy, like how many reasons why something could fail or not work or not be relevant, but then why it could be for you. That it's like, I'm not saying to ever go out and do something really dumb, or, I mean, kind of I am, but hey, those are some of the best ideas. But I'm not asking for people to go out and make really bad decisions and then be mad and unhappy. I definitely don't want that. What I am saying, though, is maybe tomorrow or this weekend or something, like, think about something that you always thought was not possible or it couldn't happen, and just take one step to make a problem a real problem. Like, if you think that you can't get enough clients, try to get a fucking client. Try to get one. Try to get one client. If you're at a point where you're like, I don't have enough clients, or I couldn't get enough clients if I wanted to do this thing. Have you tried yet? Have you asked anyone for money for the thing that you do? If the answer is no, then you can't say that it's a problem. You can't tell me I can't be an audio engineer in New Hampshire or Maine or whatever when I'm living in the sticks. Maybe I do things online. Maybe I pull people from those cities and I go and make a space that they can like relax and chill at, and they love it. And then they pay the dollar amount that makes it so I can do what I need to do, or they love it enough that they come out. Maybe I form other streams of income through I need to make it a problem before I know if it's something that can be fixed or not, but you can't tell until you do it. And I'll go into some other points later of like why I think it's the right way to go for a lot of instances, but you don't really know that it's a problem until it's a real problem. You could, no doubt, and I don't want you to feel like overconfident and be like, you know what, F it, you're right. I can just quit my job, or I can do whatever and just go at it. You could get into this of whatever it is that you were holding back on and realize that it is a big fucking problem and that you don't have a way to sustain it, or you really, financially can't afford it, or there isn't a clientele, or you don't have time, like in actuality, or like you could totally try to do things that you have a big picture idea for and not have the ability to fulfill on it for many different reasons. So I'm never saying that it's not going to happen, but most of this point of like, make it a problem first is you need to see that it's really a problem, because your mind just like, it's trained to protect you. We're human beings, and it's trained to fight or flight. It's trained to make it so that you don't do things that could harm you. And it's also there in that mindset that it's telling you can't do something to try to make it so you don't do something that could put you at risk. And you have to take a certain amount of risk to get some of the things that you want to get, especially if you want to try to make some aggressive moves and get to some cool places. You have to take risk. And it's all about mitigating risk and not taking too much risk at the same time, like finding ways to get rid of unnecessary risk. It's always about mitigating risk, but you don't know that it's definitely a problem and not something that's in your head until you've created a problem to solve. So it could be really simple. Like we have problems. Everyone has problems, and you're going to have problems forever until you're gone. And you know that. So it's like, why not have a problem that's worth fixing, or like the results are something that are worth me dealing with? Like you will by habit focus in on the problems that are your biggest problem first. So I mean, like right now I've got like a splinter or something, and I've got like a injured fingernail or something from fishing the other day. That's a problem for me. It's a problem because I touch things and it hurts, and it's a problem because I don't want to get infected. That's a problem. If I'm like working on a business or something, or something big that I'm trying to do, I'm like focused on that for like hours and hours, then all of a sudden that's not a problem. You know what I mean? So it's like, you're going to have problems no matter what you do. So you might as well create something that is worth having a problem over. You know what I mean? Like it's really like, I remember, and I've said this in some other episodes, so sorry for repeating, but I've heard from someone that picking out what business or what creative or what thing you want to spend your time doing isn't even about like, what do you want to spend your time doing? It's like, what a great way to think about it, to like see if you want to do it or not, is what problems do I want to fix? And like I've said it on here, where like I've realized this, and it's self-awareness, and it's really fucking hard to figure that out. So like I understand why people don't figure it out, and I'm learning every day. But I've learned this about myself, that like I am fine with really highs and really lows, and like, inconsistencies and like craziness in life. Those are problems that I'm fine with fixing. I'm fine with putting together a schedule, or I'm fine with figuring out how I'm going to make it work. And I'm fine with not having a ton of money. I'm fine with like alternative things. Like I'm fine with all those things. I'm not fine with complacency, and I'm not fine with like things that make it boring. So like I'm fine with those problems. What problems do you want to fix? I want to solve problems of like not having enough clients because I'm doing what I love to do. I want to solve problems of not being productive enough, or not like having a schedule because I control all my schedule. I want to have problems of trying to make sure that I'm, good for my family, good for my friends, and good to my wife and things like that, because I'm so busy with great work that I have going on. Like like there are problems that you want to have in that situation. I want to have those problems, and I'm fine with like fixing those, and it's still stressful. It's not like you're not going to like create one of these problems and have it not be stressful for you. That's not what I'm saying at all. Like, you'll be really stressed probably, unless you're way cooler than me. You might not be, but you're going to be stressed throughout it. It's not like it's not a bad thing or it's not a hard thing. It's still like a thing that's an issue. You still like need to get resolution on it, or it doesn't feel good, and kind of ride that wave of like fixing things and they're perfect, and then like new leaks open up and you got to patch it. But like, what do you want to deal with throughout the day? And like, if you don't have anything that's an interesting problem to face, and it's just normal, like you hurt your hand like me or something like that, it's just like, I don't know. I would rather solve bigger problems all day long than not. And if you don't, maybe you don't, and maybe don't do that. But like, needless to say, the reason why I'm talking about this and the reason why I kind of started that in the beginning of the episode with this is for people that are having a hard time with action, is if you have that problem, see, how about that, huh? If you have the problem where you're not taking action, then you need to create a problem so that you have to fix it to create action. How's that for like Inception life? You know what I mean? If you're not an action-driven person, or even if you are, the reason why you're doing it is because you will inevitably have to create another action to follow it, where you don't have to do anything if you don't have it. So for me, like, I'm going to go through some stuff right now that are problems for me. I have a problem with not having enough time. Like I said, is like the biggest number one thing, right? So I'm trying to find new systems. I'm trying to find more ways to organize information. I'm trying to find more ways to delegate. I'm trying to find ways to schedule better. I'm trying to solve that problem right now. In that way, you know, I definitely have a problem by not delegating things and things like that. That's a problem that I have right now that I'm trying to do, but it's creating action. Like, I have to solve it. Like, I will run out of time to do things. I'll be doing this at Wednesday at 10 p.m. because I didn't have a backlog of episodes. That's a problem. You know, to fix that, I've got to create an action. I wouldn't be in that situation if I didn't decide to podcast, and I'm super happy that I started a podcast. If you're in a spot where like you're just not doing things, like it's just not happening for you, or you've wanted to do something for years, like 10 years, 20 years more, like this person I talked to had like a while that she's been feeling this way. Like, I felt like I need to do something different than what I've been doing. I need to do a change or whatever. But like the action, you have to take an action to create that problem. And if you don't, then you're not gonna figure it out. Because, you know, on the past couple episodes, because I think we got it as an example from one of our guests. My apologies for not remembering who. It might have been Hillary Lane. If not, sorry, but it is, you know, being an entrepreneur, being an artist is just solving problems. That's like your job that you're signing up for. When you're like working at a company, you still have to solve problems all day, but you're not signing up as your job to solve problems, because you can leave at the end of the day and there's someone else that might be accountable, unless you're like the CEO or something, and just all ultimately comes back to you, high-end manager or whatever. But when you're in that, it's like your job is to solve problems all day long. And so like that's a choice in itself of that. But if you're having a hard time with doing that, I really encourage you to go create a problem. You know, like hit up a person, say they should be your client and pay you. You know, create a website and have the problem of not having any traffic to it. Create a social media page and have the problem of no one giving a shit about it. Create something, you know, put a song out there, have the problem that no one's listening. Like, just like, you have to do something so that things happen, because things will happen ultimately when you do those things. Like, for those exact examples, like if you put a song out, no one listens to it. Your problem is no one listens to your song, but your problem is not creating a song that people can listen to. So now you just got to solve it. How do I get people to listen to the song? How do I get people to listen to the next song? What went wrong with it? How do I analyze it? But those are ways that you're solving a problem, you're getting better, and then you start moving. You start on the move, you're going into what it is that it has to be. You know, let's just get into it right now. What are things that happen when you create that problem to solve? The first thing, it's very, very basic. You find a solution. You have to. You have to find a solution. That's why it's an actionable thing, and it creates an action inside you, is because it bugs the shit out of you and you need to figure it out. You're like, I have to figure it out. I need to know how to do this. Have to figure out a solution for us. That's why it's a great actionable item, because it's creating another action that you didn't even know about, which is, if I do this thing, I have to do another thing. And then when you do that thing, you have to do another thing. It'll just keep you going. And that's what you have to do. If you want to move in the direction of whatever it is that you want to do, you have to create a series of actions that just continue actions. And that's what it is. It's usually the first one, because once you kind of got it rocking, you get into a habit of like, like that's my day. I wake up, I got hit up by 3 people. Like, this is like fires that I need to put out. There's some shit going on that I need to figure out. You know, once you get on the move, then like you kind of get used to that, and that's great. But you can't get a solution if you don't know that it's a problem. You can't know that it's a problem until it's like a real thing that you have tried in real life. So one of the first reasons why you would create the problem would be to get a solution. Why would you create the problem? Okay, great. So we can get a solution, so we can figure out how to do it. That's one thing. Another thing would be learn better by being in it. And we've heard from a lot of people on the show, doing it is better than learning from anything. And we've had an episode on here debating, like, does college make sense for you? Yes or no? And we talk about all the reasons why it is or isn't. We're totally trying to stay in the middle. But you learn better by doing, not because anything's a better or worse way of learning, but because there are certain problems that I feel most can't put in perspective unless they're actually like feeling it or smelling it or seeing it. Like all those things come into place where it's a problem. Like, let's take my marathon. I ran my first marathon this year. For those of you that don't know, for those of you that donated and cheered me on, thank you again. I ran my first marathon this year, and I've studied it and researched it and worked with and connected with people. Like, how do I do this? Like, what am I going to face? Like, what's going to go on? That is an example in itself. The problem I created is I knew I wanted to do that. I knew I wouldn't want to just wake up and go do it. So I set a date and I booked a marathon. Well, I fucking got to solve that. I got to go and train for it. I have to do it. I've booked it. I'm supposed to be there. Right? But side quest aside, there are certain things that people told me, like you're going to have, you're going to have this issue at mile 18, or you're going to have this issue from, lack of salt content that you're taking in, or like all these technical things that I started learning that I had no idea was happening with people who did marathons, but it makes sense because that's like a lot of shit to do, right? But all these things that they say, and I learn it and I know it, and I know that that's a problem. And I know that that's a thing that's going to be an issue because people told me and they know what they're saying and I know it. But it's a different thing to read about it or even watch YouTube videos and even like people that you trust and know and watch something and learn from someone. You still don't get it until it happens. And then you're like, holy shit, I didn't realize it was that big of a problem. Isn't that weird? Like, we can learn from people that we trust. So like, you're probably really in the way of like believing it at that point. Like, we really trust, we really take in what people say to us, who we really know and trust. And we take that like very high. That goes way up the list. So like, it's no joke, but I still find, and I'm sure that you guys can think of examples of this where like people would be like, yeah, don't do this thing. You'll be really hungover. Don't do this thing, or like you're going to hurt yourself in this way, or don't do this thing because it'll be like the worst way to travel. Or they just tell you like tips and tricks, like directly from someone that you trust, and you still don't fucking do it until you do it. And you're like, shit, that's what they were talking about. And you're like, yeah, they said that this would happen. But like, like it's like when you're a kid and your mom's like, don't touch the frying pan that's on the stove because you will burn your finger, it will blister up and feel awful for a week. Like, they literally tell you that. And then you're a kid, so you have kid head on, and like we all keep kid head throughout our lives like a little bit. And like, I think that that's what draws us in, is like, you're like, oh yeah, that will hurt. And you're like, that sounds like it sucks. I trust my mom like more than everyone. Then you touch the stove. And like, when you touch the stove, you never do it again for the rest of your life because you actually truly know like what that means. I think that's also part of like creating a problem so you can fix it, because that's a real life example of how you can take that in, of like what it really means. So I went to school for audio. That was great. I've told the story on here, kicked the shit out of me in music theory and like made me be a better musician, maybe get better at my instruments. Like, I networked with people. I met really good friends. Like, there's amazing, tons of stuff. If you want to argue college, go back and check out the episode where like we legit argue, like, should you or should you not go to college, right? That's its own argument. But I did that, but I also got an internship at a recording studio and started recording some bands. I also started doing live sound for bands and working at a record label for free as an internship, and working in the business side of music. And all of those taught me things that I could never learn from just sitting in school, because even though in school, and I went on and got my master's in music business from Berkeley. It was awesome. Met awesome people, networked awesome stuff, great information in the courses. Instructors were great, super chill. Talked to them. Like, none of this is bad things, but I did a ton of education and I don't regret any of it. But there's things that you just can't get from those things because of that reason, that I believe that you need to make the problem to solve it, so that way you can feel that and really suck it in. And if you created the problem, it's something that you're really bullish on making happen. And it's something that you want the lesson from, and you really wouldn't have taken the action. So I know that this is like a very kind of like, whoa, okay, we're getting out there and out there and out there. But this is the way that I think of it in a day-to-day thing of like, how do I make this thing just on my radar, something that has to happen on a checklist, and then all of a sudden I'm learning from it, I'm reacting, I'm creating a solution. Now it's like, okay, now I'm in the game and now I'm moving and now I'm doing things and I'm learning from it. I'm learning the right way, because now I'm learning in real life a way that makes it so that like subconsciously I don't even think about it to make the decision, because they're like, oh, you never do this thing because that time, remember that time that sucked when I did that. And I think that that's really my main thing about it is your process of learning it and the action to do it. I think that the best things that we learn are from problems. And on the show, if you listen to the 5 questions that I ask on the end, I always ask, what is the biggest mistake that you've made? And I always have to say this like really diluted way of asking it. You guys know it if you've been listening, and I'm sorry because it's super diluted. But I say, like, if you could take the problem and, give it to someone as something to eat and they just magically took it in. I have to say all this crazy shit to get people to think about it, because people learn amazing lessons from problems and they think it's a positive thing later because of how much they learn from those, that I can't get people to say shit that they shouldn't do because they're like, I should have done it because I learned so much from it. But I'm trying to give you guys stuff that doesn't suck to do and still teach you something from maybe listening to the podcast. And you're like, oh, okay. And I don't want to rob you of that experience, but like if it's like truly a terrible thing where someone's like, yeah, I was like living in squalor for like 3 years after that. I don't want you to do that. I want you to hear it on here and maybe hear the emotion in that person's voice and be like, that sounded super, super shitty. And like at least like materialize that enough, or like get it, internalize it enough, I guess is what I mean, that you learn from it to have that problem experience and learn from it. But at the end of the day, like that person, like the reason why people always take it positively on the show, always, is because they learn shit from those problems that they couldn't have learned unless they had the problem. Then they took action, and all the people on this show have been doing some pretty cool shit, in my opinion. I invited them as guests, so I might be a little biased in that, but but I think that they're doing some pretty cool shit, which is why I invite them on. I imagine if you're listening, you probably think so too. And all of them have done that through being really positive about problems that they have had. Most of them caused those problems for themselves, or when the problem happened and then they solved it, they had that pop that happened that was like, I'm going to do this forever. I'm going to be the best at this. I'm going to do all these crazy other things because of this is a problem. Because this is a problem, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix it for everyone, right? Like literally that's the thing, right? Like I'm sorry to side quest so much, but I'm just like stream of consciousness when I'm by myself. You might have a problem that you put out there. You might not find a solution for yourself to do it, but you might have at least found a problem and then found out tons of people have the problem, and then taken action to solve that problem for tons of people. And that's literally creating a business. So like, I want to just wrap this up right now because we hit 30 minutes. Thank you guys for hanging with me for a really quick one. Thank you guys for bearing with me for going live on a Wednesday night instead of a Thursday night like I always do. And tomorrow will not be on because I'm going to be hanging out with some family and doing some stuff to get ready for this wedding here for my family. But I want to encourage you this weekend, if you're watching this as a live stream, or this Tuesday that you're listening to this on the podcast, whenever you're listening to this, maybe you're listening to this years from now, I want to encourage you to think about what you can do to cause a problem now. that you are fine with solving, but like you don't know the solution yet. That's okay. Like that's actually the point of it. Like don't know how you're going to do it yet. There are things that I'm doing right now with a property. I have no fucking idea how I'm going to afford some certain things. I'm crunching numbers. I'm doing math. I'm mitigating risks. I'm paying off things. Like I'm doing a ton of things to get risk out of the way, but I am taking a large risk regardless. There are things I don't know how I'm going to do it yet. I have no idea, but I'm creating a big old problem and I'm mitigating risk the most that I possibly can. I'm going to give myself a problem I'm going to solve because I'm going to get a space that I have to figure it out in. There's going to be shit in that space where like, I don't even know what I'm going to find. I already know that there's a barn cat actively living in there that I somehow have to get out of there. That's a problem. But like, there's going to be problems in this space that I have no idea how to deal with. And I'm going to go figure it out because I have to figure it out because I have to take action to solve other problems, which is I don't have my own space and I freelance out. It's endless, man. It's endless, or woman, because men and women both listen to this. Sorry, but that's my terminology. It is endless, people, what you have to deal with for problems. Go out there, make a problem that you don't know the solution for that is highly tailored to what you want to get done if you haven't been taking action, or if you have been, but in a direction that you haven't been because you're making up things that are not true because you're really fucking awesome and you can do some cool shit. Go out, make a problem for yourself, and I will see you guys next Thursday on here in real life. And yeah, have an awesome weekend, guys. I know it's a long weekend. It's still Corona USA, and you deserve to have a weekend where you have a good time in a safe way. Go be happy, go cause a problem for yourself and kill it. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks for hanging out on Instagram Live late on a Wednesday.